All right, let's take a look at some compounding examples with some hypothetical, made-up, fake, theoretical numbers. This gets pretty crazy when you start looking at compounding. The purpose of this video is just to allow someone to begin to wrap their wits around the power of compounding. And this is going to be presented from the hypothetical viewpoint of how to turn $3,500 into almost $700 million in 2 years. $699,084,200 to be exact, in 2 years. Exactly 2 years. Starting with $3,500 without any recurring monthly costs or business overhead of any kind. And I just want to point out that pay attention to the disclosure below, because results can vary in real life and business. Anything I'm showing here is just hypothetical example made up numbers based on the math. Nothing here is intended to guarantee or even imply that you will earn anything, that you will have any profit. And the numbers I'm going through here are exceptional, probably not typical. Although, if somebody actually understood this math, I'm not sure what the outcome would be. Do not take any of this as financial or investment advice. The speaker is not a financial or investment advisor. If you want financial or investment advice, go talk to a licensed, qualified financial or investment advisor. This is just some guy playing with numbers in a spreadsheet because it's interesting and posting it out there for some of you may find it interesting. So if you happen to have a vehicle that was producing 3% daily profits, then this would be very interesting. Now these examples are going to assume that 3% daily profit, historical statistics of 3% daily profit maintains at 3% for 2 years, every day for 2 years. What can actually happen in the future with whatever vehicle you may be using, which may be producing 3% daily profit? Nobody knows, because nobody has a crystal ball. But we're going to look at here how to turn $3,500 into $699 million in 2 years. Now, if we start over here, we're starting with an amount that's $3,465. How did I arrive at the amount $3,465? Well, I arbitrarily decided on $3,500, and then in this example, we were using a vehicle, a trading vehicle that has been producing 3% per day. Again, that's no guarantee of future performance. Past statistics, past performance doesn't indicate future performance necessarily, but this vehicle has been producing 3% per day, and it's been doing it for some time. So one might then be curious about what would happen if it continues to do that long into the future. That might end tomorrow. That might end in a year. It might end in 10 years. Nobody knows. These are just fake, made-up projections. Okay? With that, I arbitrarily decided on $3,500 just to fund that particular vehicle, and $35 came out in fees when I purchased Tether with USD. So within the crypto wallet, to turn my dollars into Tether, by the time I paid the fees, it was $3,465. Now, 3% per day. So this column here, all this column is, if you know how these spreadsheets work, you look at the formula, you'll realize that each cell down is just 3% higher than the previous cell. Real simple. So if we start with $3,465, or $3,500 minus fees, and we go down 1 year to line 365 here, we see that $3,465 turns into $163,099,748.79. That's 3% per day compounded with no withdrawals from that particular account in our fictional hypothetical future. And you say, my God, how can that be? It's only 3%. Yeah, it's 3% per day. This is why I believe Einstein said compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Well, this isn't interest, it's profit, but the same principle applies. If we go out 2 years, we've got day 730, which is 2 years, and that turns into an amount which is beyond the capacity for most human beings to think with, which is $7 trillion, 907 billion, 520 million, $191,834. You say, my God, how can that even be possible? Well, it's just the math. This in and of itself is not even an opinion. This is just the math at 3% compounded per day, 730 times, or 729 times. That's what it turns into. The problem I think that most people have, and maybe the reason why the private reserve banks and so forth and the private banking families are filthy, filthy rich and worth literally trillions of dollars, I suspect is because they understand compounding and the average Joe doesn't. Because what would the average Joe do? The average Joe, if we go back to this line, the average Joe, if they were to put $3,500 into something, they'd get maybe 2 months in and they'd go, OMG, I made almost $20,000. Let me take out $10,000. And that would knock this balance down. And by doing that a few times, this number way down at the bottom here at the end that used to be trillions now turns into almost nothing because they keep taking money out and not letting it compound. Again, not financial advice, not investment advice. It's just math. If you take out, let's go back here. Let's go back to, I don't know, let's say you've been withdrawing and withdrawing and withdrawing. Every time you hit 20 grand, you take 10 grand out. And you go, yay, I'm making 10 grand every, well, how often is it? Every 27 days or whatever it is. Where's the 10,000? So 37 days. So let's say at day 60. So every 2 months you take out 10 grand. You go, awesome, I'm making an extra 5 grand a month. Well, the problem is you get all the way down here and you still only have 10 grand in your account. Okay? So if I change this to 10,000, then your last day of your second year, you still only have 20,000 in your account. So there's something to be said for letting the compounding happen in a situation like that. And this is the sort of thing, it gets so exciting you can't sleep if you really begin to understand it, and you can manage to even find a vehicle that's producing 15-20% a month. That's enough to keep you awake at night. But that's not, so it's the difference between trillions of dollars and tens of thousands in the end. So if we fix this and we go, well, let's stop taking all our money out all the time, every time we need it. Basically, if you were doing that every other month for 2 years, that'd be 12 withdrawals of $10,000. That'd be 120 grand you took out. And in order to get the 120,000, you literally cost yourself $7,907,520,000,000 plus dollars. This is crazy, right? Now, you can't take out nothing. If you're in a situation like this and you have to survive, and this is how you make a living, is by doing trading or arbitrage so that your profits are feeding your family. Well, you have to take out something, right? Or if you're looking to transition from a job to this sort of scenario, you have to take out something. You can't just go with no income for 2 years, or maybe you could if you have a job, if you're willing to do it. But all I want you to get is the power of compounding. It is unfreaking believable. Now again, this is fake, hypothetical, fictional numbers made up to illustrate a point. Don't anyone come to me and say, well, you said I was going to make. No, I didn't. I didn't say you're going to make anything. As a matter of fact, I said there's no guarantee or implication that you'll make anything. Because whatever vehicle you choose, if it's now yielding 3% per day, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But let's just assume for the sake of this video that it's going to continue for at least 2 years. Now what I've done is I set up a thing here in this spreadsheet, which some of you are going to ask me, how did you set the spreadsheet up like that? And it's just too complicated to explain. But over here, this actually, we don't even need this column, is pointless to pay attention to. As a matter of fact, let me just make these numbers white so it's not even an issue. Over here are dates. These are dates starting with, so the deposit date would have been March 15th. Day 1, 24 hours later, would have been March 16th in this example. And in this example, I've noted for me, the vehicle that I'm using that is generating 3% per day, and that's just me personally. I'm not saying it's going to do that for you, although I don't know why it would be any different. 3% here, and this is actual. So you could see that my personal results are actually exceeding 3%, but that's neither here nor there because that's just my personal results. What we want to pay attention to is the balance. And the balance here, compounding 3% per day, takes into account any withdrawals that we make. Now what happens when somebody tries to figure all this out, they go, well, how much can I take out? And like I just gave you over here in this example, most people, when they get to something like this, they would say, oh, I'm going to take out 5,000. I'll leave half in there. And they'll do that over and over, and they'll just destroy their future results. And one of the things that happens is if someone is used to kind of being broke all the time and they can't really have money, like it's a mental or spiritual thing. Are you able to have? You're able to have money. And some people just can't. So it makes it very hard for some people to think in terms of futures like this. Because when you get up where you've got a hypothetical, fictional, compounded amount that gets up to, 50,000 in your account up in this area, it's very tempting to just take out 25 grand and go have a big party and go take a vacation and, spend it. It's very enticing. But, if you did go and talk to a financial advisor and you were talking to him about just a reasonable investment plan for retirement, and you were going to put in, I don't know, let's say you've been putting in $700 or $800 a month for 15 years. It's been coming out from your paycheck, and then you want to take a bunch of it out now when you're only 45 years old. Your investment advisor is going to pull his freaking hair out because he knows how much future yield or returns or profit that's going to destroy. So look in this example. On day 37, so in this example, nothing gets withdrawn for 37 days. Why 37 days? It's just an arbitrary selection point, and at 37 days, the balance becomes 10,000. When you take the 800 out, now it's down to 92.42. So on day 37, compounding, it would be 10,242.54 here. Now we take out 800 and we're left with 92.42. So the plan, and I've run this all different sorts of ways in this hypothetical fictional example, the plan to take this 3,500 and turn it into 699 million is just math. So first thing you got to do is you got to let the compounding at 3% per day run until you hit 10K in assets in the account. Then what you do is you take out 800 a week for 8 weeks, and then you take out 1,000 a week for 8 weeks, and then you take out 2,000 a week for 8 weeks, then 5,000 a week for 8 weeks. So that's 32 weeks. How many weeks in a year? 26. So you are 13 and a half months in by that point, and you're only taking 5,000 a week out. But let's look at the balances. In this hypothetical, fictional, made-up example that in no way is intended to predict your future reality, we get into, well, here we're 58 days in, let's say 2 months in, we got 15 grand in the account, and we're only taking out $800 that week. Man, that might be hard for some people to restrain themselves on. It's almost like having a big ice cream sundae in front of you, and it's got nuts and chocolate and whipped cream all over it, and there's a spoon right there, and it's right in front of your face, but you can't eat it. And as we move forward, being very conservative on withdrawals. Why? Because we want the compounding to continue to increase. As we move forward and we get to 90 days or 93 days, and our balance gets up over 33,000, we're still only taking out $1,000 a week. That might be hard discipline to enforce upon yourself unless you understand the concept of compounding, which I'm trying to convey in this video. So what was our formula? 800, this is weekly withdrawals, okay? You take out 800 a week for 8 weeks, 1,000 a week for 8 weeks, 2,000 a week for 8 weeks, $5,000 a week for 8 weeks. Now let's look at the 5,000s over here in the yellow column. 1,000, 2,000, and we get into 5 weeks of 8,000, or 8 weeks of 5,000. Look at the balance here on the first one, $774,000. I tell you, if you want an exercise in self-discipline, it would be being in a position where you have almost $800,000 sitting in an account, but you're only going to take pay for that week of $5,000. Why are we limiting it so much? Because again, when you start taking out higher amounts, you affect your future profits so much that it will literally make you cry and have a nervous breakdown later when you realize it, assuming that whatever vehicle you're using that's producing 3% per day, if you can find one, manages to maintain for at least 2 years. If it doesn't maintain, right? If you get up to this point, 200, let's say you get up to this point, you're 67 days in, you got 17 grand in here, and you don't take out the 17 grand, and something happens, whoever controls that vehicle that's yielding that percentage gets killed in a plane crash, or the company blows up, or there's World War III, or they decide to go criminal and do a rug pull and leave with all your money, well, then it wouldn't matter much, would it? In that situation, you'd say, geez, I should have taken the 17 grand out and, bought a car. I mean, you can buy a car for that now. Bought a used car. Then I'd have been better off. But none of us have a crystal ball, do we? And I would say if you don't think something's going to be around for at least 2 years, maybe don't put any money in it. Or if you want to be super conservative and risk, because what's the risk? If you think about it, everybody worries about the risk of losing what they're putting in. But they're not thinking about how much they're losing by not leaving it in. So is the risk of losing, in this scenario, is the risk of losing $3,500 scarier, or is the risk of losing $699 million scarier? Because if such a thing as a 3% daily profit compounding were able to be maintained for 2 years, it would turn $3,500 into $699 million. But if one is scared and they're not willing to risk the 3,500, and it could be 5,000, could be 10,000, whatever that person wants to risk, could be $20. It's going to turn into something. It's going to compound. When you change that initial start number, it's going to change the outcomes here. But is the risk of losing that 3,500 really that much more scary than the loss of the 699 million that occurs because someone is so itchy that they pull everything out the moment they double their money? Now, one really conservative way to do it, if you're really poor and you just have to absolutely struggle, the $3,500 is every dime you had to put into that deal, whatever that deal was, and oh my God, it's a problem, my wife is going to freaking kill me, is once you double it, just take out your initial, once you get to here, take out your initial $3,500. But if you understood how much money that was going to cost you in the future. Here, let's look at it. Let's go over here. Let's go here to when we hit 7,000. How many years out do we want to go? Let's just go 1 year out to day 365. Again, I'm not telling you what to do with your money. This is not advice. I'm just running hypothetical numbers. You're going to do whatever you want to do and whatever deal you're in. But you can see straight up 3% daily compounding turns into 163 million. Let's make this field purple so we can find it when we come back easier. Now let's go back. We had a $3,500 start, and when we got to 7,000, we said, oh, I'm going to be safe, and I'm going to take out my 3,500. So that'll leave this at 3543.64. Now, one withdrawal. Now let's go back to our day 365. And we have cost ourselves, what was it, 131 million? So we've cost ourselves 18 and 30, that's 48, $49 million. I may be misrecalling it. $49 million. Let's go back and fix this. It's 82, right? I gotta, my short-term memory is shot, so I gotta, here, let's just paste it up here so we can see the difference. That didn't work. 82. We'll call it 82 million. All right. Now let's fix this. Now let's go back down. 82 million compared to 163 million. Okay, so half. So in other words, by taking out the $3,500 on day, whatever day it was, 38, 30 something, we cost ourselves almost $82 million. Isn't that interesting? So we basically spent $82 million to get $3,500. So sometimes I see people actually giving advice on this, which I don't know why they are, because they're not qualified. They obviously haven't done the math, right? The only reason you would take out more than is absolutely essential in a situation like this would be if you think there's reason to believe that the whole deal is just going to disappear. And maybe it will. You don't know. I don't know either. But in terms of math, it's a hell of a risk. If the whole thing falls apart, you got $3,500 that you risked and it's gone. If it doesn't fall apart and you take your $3,500 out, you just wasted $81 million. That's for 1 year. 2 years is just ridiculous. This is just the math, guys. So look how these things roll out. If we take out just 800 for 8 weeks and then 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 for 8 weeks, at that point it starts to get interesting because the compounding has gone so far that things begin to get really exciting. So after the 5,000, so let's go down to our 5,000s. The 8th week of 5,000, we have $3.2 million in assets and we've taken out only 5,000 that week. And you go, woe is me, I'm so poor, I'm only making 20,000 a month, and I've got 3 million in there that I can't touch. But the very next week, on day 261, you start taking out 400,000 per week. Now, if you take this money and this and this and all the withdrawals and you add them all up, and you divide them by the number of withdrawals so that they're evenly spaced out all the way back to here, you can't even do it. Because there's not enough money here to do it and the amount never grows. So you have to do a little bit and then wait, and then do a little bit and then wait, and do a little bit and then wait. So I tried to do this in a way where someone were looking at this and they're like, well, I need weekly income. Okay, well, can you wait just like a little over a month? Can you wait like 5 weeks? 6.5 weeks? Because if you can, or can you just wait until your balance hits 10 grand? Forget about where you're starting. If you're starting with 1,000 or 500 or 10,000, if you're starting at 10,000, well, you could start it later. If you're starting at 5,000, it would just take less days to get to where your account's at 10,000. But in this model, we're looking at, let's run it to 10,000. So we start withdrawing when the account hits 10,000. We're just withdrawing, 8%. But when we get past that $5,000 8 weeks, things begin to get really interesting. Now we were withdrawing 400,000 a week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Every 7 days, 400,000 for 4 weeks. And look at the balance increasing. And then we're going to withdraw 500,000 for 4 weeks. So $500,000 a week for 4 weeks. And by the end of that 4 weeks, our account is up to 8 million, almost $9 million. Now it starts to get really freaking interesting, doesn't it? Because you had some discipline, or because, our hypothetical, fictional, fake, made-up person in this example who happens to have some vehicle that produces 3% per day had some discipline, and they're only taking out 5, and they only took out 800 a week for 2 months. And their friends are going, well, how much are you making? You go, well, 800 a week. And they go, that's it? I thought everybody's supposed to be getting rich. Less than a year later, you're taking out $2 million a week. as the balance increases, we could take out more weekly, and the balance continues to increase. See, we took out 2 million here, we had 9.02 left, and here we took out 2 million and we had 9.1 million left. So then we're going to take out 2 million for a while. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 weeks. 2 million a week for 16 weeks. 4 months. And after 4 months, at this point, your whole viewpoint's shifting. You're beginning to get greedy and think, man, I got $16 million, but you've taken out 2 million a week. After 16 weeks of that, now we start taking out 3 million a week for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. We take out 3 million, and now our assets have increased to 28 million. And then what do? Then we take out 4 million a week for 2 weeks. And then we pay ourselves 5 million a week for 2 more weeks. Now our balance is up to 39 million. Keep in mind, in this example, this hypothetical, fake, made-up, fictional example that you should in no way take as financial or investment advice, this is all in crypto. So there's not going to be any withdrawal fees. There might be a $3 deposit fee on the very first $3,500. And if you're withdrawing in dollars to your bank account, when all is said and done, you may have a small, if you do it in ACH, there's not even going to be a fee for that. There's not even any transaction fees. Imagine you were doing all this by credit card. My God, what is the 3.9% of 39 million? So that's between you and your crypto wallet, but for the sake of this hypothetical made-up fake example, at this point, you would switch to, on day 513, you would switch to taking out 6 million a week, and then for 2 weeks, and then on day 527, 1 week later, you would switch to 10 million. And we're going to take out 10 million a week for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. And then we're going to bump it up to 12 million for 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks. Now, keep in mind, you're withdrawing 12 million a week, but your balance is still increasing like crazy by millions of dollars per week, even after the withdrawal. You see, this is after you've done the withdrawal. This is not 3% compounding. This is 3% compounding factoring the withdrawals in. So after we've done 12 million a week for 4 weeks, then we're going to bump it up to 15 million a week for 4 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see, at the end of the 15 million weekly withdrawal month, we have $84 million in our account. Once we pass 100 million in the account, then we're going to start withdrawing 16 million a week, which happens to be 1 week later, day 639. We're going to withdraw 16 million a week for 4 weeks. We'll end up with 104 million in assets in the account and 16 million a week. Then we're going to bump that up to 22 million a week for 4 weeks. Then we bump it up to 25 million per week withdrawal for 4 weeks. Then we bump it up to 28 million. And now at this point, we're approaching the end of our 2 years. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 7th day of the last week is the last day of 2 years. And we decided we wanted to see how much we could generate in 2 years, how much we could withdraw. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to withdraw everything except for $10 million. And that means on day 730, we're going to withdraw $141,414,000. And where that's going to end us up is that's going to end us up with total withdrawals of $699,084,200 in exactly 2 years. In addition, in this hypothetical, made-up, fake, theoretical example that you should in no way take as financial or investment advice, because this is just the math, we're just looking at concepts, you also end up with $10 million remaining in assets, which will yield another $14,200,000 approximately every month in recurring income from that point forward, as long as that 3% daily profit maintains. So I did add that onto the bottom here. Okay, so here's your big withdrawal on the last day of 2 years. Then we go out 30 days. Now at this point, you just do a once a month withdrawal. That withdrawal will be $14,200,000. First month after the end of 2 years, 2 years and 1 month, you see after we've withdrawn our 14.2 million, we have 10,072,000 in the account, and 30 days later we withdraw 14.2 million, we have $10,249,000 in the account. So there is a difference there of about not quite $200,000. So in other words, as the months go by, this balance will continue to increase, and at some point your monthly withdrawals you can increase as well. I would argue that someone who was actually in this position, hypothetically, would really have no need to ever worry about money ever again, unless of course they decided to just dedicate all their profits to some sort of global cause and they needed literally billions and billions of dollars to do so. But from a personal standpoint, why do you even care? Just take all your money out and the next 8, 10, 12 generations of your family never have to work again. So again, pay attention to the disclosure here. None of this is intended as any sort of guarantee of income or implication. I'm not implying how much you're going to make. This is just what happens if you take 3% and you compound it and you withdraw on a conservative schedule as I've laid out here. Does math lie? Reality lies. Human decisions lie. Mistakes lie. Fear of risk lies. The math is the math. Math is not an opinion, but it doesn't mean you'll make money. But hopefully that helps you wrap your head around compounding a little bit. I do personally at this time have an arbitrage deal that is producing 3% per day. How long it will produce 3% per day, I don't know. And neither do you. How long will it be around? I don't know. And neither do you. My understanding, just based on the hearsay from other people, is there are people who've been doing this 3% per day for since 2019, but I've been doing it today's day 5 at the time of me making this. I can't guarantee how long it would run, how long it will produce 3% per day. It's, from what I can tell, it's very low risk. It's simply an arbitrage deal using software that automates a process that a human being could never realistically do. So God bless AI. And it's possible that tomorrow it could disappear. It's possible it could be around for the next 40 years. Anything's possible. And if it's something you wanted to look at, if you decided to get involved with it based on your own decision, not based on any advice from me, because I'm not advising that you do it. I'm not recommending it. I'm not vouching for it. I'm simply letting you know what I do. If it were something you wanted to be involved with, then any risk you took would be on you, not me. If things don't go the way you want them to go, don't get mad at me, because I'm not telling you to do it. If you would like the information on that so that you can look at it for educational purposes, for informational purposes, for curiosity purposes, if you want to take that information and run it past your qualified licensed investment or financial advisor, you can do that. I'll put a link below so you can see that information. If you have any questions about this compounding spreadsheet or the math in it, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my contact info below as well. I hope that was helpful for you, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.